Welcome to the Apex eSports League Formula Rookie Cup for Project Cars 2 on the PS4. Tonight we have round 4 of the 5-round series. So we're heading over to the Red Bull Ring GP. And tonight is our usual setup, so 2 sessions, so 2 races. First off, heading into a 15-minute practice. Whether it is clear, qualifying is 15 minutes. Whether it is clear, and the first race, being the sprint race, is 10 laps. Whether it is light cloud, no mandatory pit. Then we'll have about a 10-minute break in between, and then head into session 2, which is 15-minute qualifying. Weather is medium cloud, with 20 laps being the main race. Weather is medium cloud with mandatory pit. So far, we have Azuro leading the championship with 408 points, and Demon Effects following with 276 points, and not too far behind is Gallon 350 as well. So Azuro has so far taken 6 wins, with last week taking a full clean sweep, so taking 2 pole positions, 2 race wins, and the fastest laps for both of them. So a very strong start in the championship, with taking every win in each of the races for each round so far this series. So some very consistent and strong driving by Azuro. So will he manage to get another lot of pole positions and some race victories tonight, and then drag that out to 8 victories and still claiming every victory for this championship? So we'll go over and have a look at the track. So over to Austria. Game time for practice session will be starting at 9 AM. Track length is 4.32 kilometers, and there are 10 turns in the track. It is a nice, fast, semi-technical track. A few off-cambered fast turns around that sector 3. There's can be quite slippery coming into the second last turn. It is a very, very wide, fast line, so potentially see a lot of passes being done in that section coming onto the pit lane. And not the best view for the pits. Cars already heading out onto the track. We have 10 so far in the session. Hopefully we can expect to see a few more join later on. A couple more that are online but haven't yet come across to join us. Hopefully we do see them come in and each have a go at trying to steal a win away from Azuro's perfect record so far for this series. He's been dominating very strongly for this championship. And another driver to watch out for tonight is Weaven 777. So we saw him enter into the series late after missing the first couple of rounds, and then we saw him come in with no practice with the cars and drove very good last week's round. We saw him in the sprint race qualify in 5th position, then he finished in 4th, and then for the main race he qualified 5th but finished 2nd, and there was a fair good chance for Sami actually taking the win early on in the races, but then a mistake we saw coming onto the pit straight actually did see him throw that chance of taking a win away from our championship leader. We'll make our way through our grid. If you join us for the chat, don't be shy, be sure to jump in and say hello. Let us know who you think is going to get pole position, and also let me know if you can hear me nice and clear. I am running a new headset, so hopefully the mic volume levels are fine, and I am sporting a bit of a cranky voice, so hopefully it does last the session tonight. So Simo Simsel in the blue, number 99. Very out of focus shot as we come through. Over to DG0787. Disfigured Soul in the yellow car. Looks like DG just behind him. Over to Jeffries 1109 in the light blue car. Easy one to pick out amongst the colours. Slumpy Kiwi. Demon Effects, who we saw him and Gallen 350 a couple of rounds ago, doing some great pace, trying to keep up with Azuro. Both of them working to try and close that gap and catch up on Azuro. So we've seen Azuro manage to be able to get ahead quite quickly off the start, and then starts to put quite a bit of time difference between him and second position, and then starts to keep that consistent driving going. And with these cars, you do need that slipstream to take advantage of pushing the car for a little bit of extra speed. So once you've let that car get ahead of you, if they manage to keep pace that you can't try and close that gap on, it is going to be a very difficult time trying to close in and have an opportunity to take a pass. And over to Sami in that dark green, number 11. Hopefully Sami has some better luck with the car tonight, and then could potentially see him get ahead of Azuro and take a win. He was our closest contender for a while. He kept peg for peg with Azuro for about 5 laps until he made that mistake coming onto the final turn and then spun out. And then that cost him his chance of being able to catch back up to Azuro and have a go for a pass. He was putting on a lot of pressure to Azuro. Over to Weaven, 777 in that white and black car. The first times coming through on the board. Chatter from the guys in the group was they were setting about 1:46 as the fastest time, I believe. I think average pace is about the 150 mark. They're doing pretty good at the moment with setting a 1:48 just about flat. Can Azuro manage to get another clean sweep tonight? Let us know in the chats. If you haven't done so, when you join us for the stream, be sure to hit that follow button. Appreciate having all the support we can get from our viewers. And that will let you be notified when we do go live for our events. All our social media links are down below as well. So there's our Facebook page if you want to check out any of the results and standings and incident reports from any of the accidents. All the details get posted onto there. And there's also a link to head over into our Facebook group as well if you want to try and get involved in some of our racing and get out on the track and be broadcast as well. And Azuro's just come through fastest lap of 1:47.266, so shaving about a second off from that first cold time. Try and jump on board with someone for a full lap. Oh, Gallen's had a big spin, taking out the sign and the cones before making hard contact with that wall. That'll see him bring that car back in. These tyres being quite cold. We'll jump on board with Weaven. So these cars top out at about 180 to 190 kilometers an hour. They can adjust the full setups for these cars. The custom setups are allowed. You can slightly adjust gear ratios for the cars. You tend to lose a fair bit of your top end speed by looking at getting a lot more first and second gear response, which is very good for getting a very good jump start on the grids. But for some of the tracks which require a longer straights, it's very disadvantageous for it. So it'll be interesting to see how the guys are going with their setups for this track. The turn, we got me miss a bit, so heading down into the midsection of sector 2. And Azuro's just come through fastest lap of 1:46.576. A lot of slip as he goes around that corner. He can slide these things around and whip them through some technical corners with a little bit of gravel on the track there, causing Weaven to slightly go offline. It got a little bit slippery. We just had Sami have his lap time validated, just run off the track. And the line going down into that second last turn is actually quite tricky as it goes through the pit entry. So we'll have to be very cautious taking that line once we start looking at the main race. So we're having Weaven there doing a very good one, so we'll get some more detail on the track as we go around this first section. So very sharp right hand turn for turn 1. Very long straight. We see him get to about 180 before getting on the anchors for another very sharp right hand turn. So very late apex, just get out and you can use that curb, but these cars do like to slip a fair bit once getting out onto the curb, so being very easy with that throttle, you really have to feather it through. Another long straight, I think we're getting to about 185 before he has to hit the anchors, and he does. Very sharp turn into the right again, up over that curb can be very dangerous. That car will bottom out and actually scrape along there and potentially go off into a big spin. And then the fast bend that we saw, we even contend with a bit of debris on the track around here before. And then we have done a lap and then we're coming up to these last turns where it does actually cross onto the pit lane. So it's very fast, it's basically a very long corner here. It only straightens up for a very brief period before coming into that final turn, which you can get right up over that curb and dive straight down through the track. And there we are on board for a lap around, a lap and a half more so with Weaven. The Zero setting 1:46.389. That is getting rather quick. I think he was talking about being able to set 146 flat. It's a lot of slide going out in that rear as he takes that corner. He's really pushing this car. And that last lap by Weaven was a 1:47.411, so he's come through with quite a good time. It's about a second off pace from a Zero. So if potential times like that at this rate, that could easily see by the end of the sprint race at least a 10-second lead by a Zero, and then we have been seeing Zero tend to finish each race with about an 8 to 10 second lead. So that consistent pace being a very good advantage for a Zero. But any mistake can happen, and if he does happen to slide that car off, that'll just definitely going to cost him some positions and time, and very hard to recover from. Garland 350 currently coming third in the championship with 260 points. Demon Effects is 16 points ahead of him. And I will bring up some statistics for Gallons. So Gallons had one pole position. His average qualifying position is third. He's taken 2 second places, 3 third places, so his average race position is third and averaging 52 points per race. And then Demon Effects, who is coming second in the championship. He's got about 32 points behind a Zero in the championship. And then with the final round being next week, we've had someone drop out. Oh, Azuro's disconnected. He did disconnect in the lobby beforehand. So this could be some stressful times for Azuro trying to sort out his network. He was mentioning the family was using the Wi-Fi to stream some video services, and he's asked them not to do it so that he can ensure his bandwidth is there, as he does not want to lose just for the sake of a disconnect. Check out Sami and his statistics. The Sami's average qualifying position is 6th. He's taken 1 second place, 1 third place, and his average race position is 6th. So he's taking an average of 37 points per race. Oh, and he's just lost a bit of traction there and run off track. I don't think he's taken any damage. So Demon FX currently in with the 4th fastest time. That is after a 0 has left. Hopefully he can get back on. He does have time. There's a minute 30 left of practice, and then we head off into 15 minutes of qualifying. So as long as the 0 is fine and can get in and set a good time. There are points up for grabs for qualifying position, so that is important. So there's 20 points up for grabs for a pole position. And there's 30 points for a race victory in the sprint, and then 60 points for the main race. So there is potential for 150 points tonight. So if a 0 manages to get a clean sweep, he will actually have enough points that he does not actually have to attend the final round. And he'll have enough points to win, as there's only the one race, and a victory there will see 120 points. 20 points for a pole position, and then 5 bonus points for the fastest lap of the race. So if he gets a clean sweep tonight, he's guaranteed the victory for the championship, and he will be scoring himself a Apex Esports League Champion Coffee Cup. So that is the prize that's up for grabs for this championship. A yellow flag at the moment. Practice is complete. Nice line by Jeffries. A little bit early into that corner, seeing him run wide coming out from the apex. The drivers now have just under 110 seconds to get their last laps done. Hopefully we won't see a 0 back in for the practice session, but we hopefully may have him join in time. TG's just exceeded track limits, so his current lap isn't counting. And then Simo, that slappy Kiwi that's just ploughed that car into the pit lane wall. Not sure if he has... Oh, a 0 has rejoined, so he's just waiting out in the lobby until the next session starts. Disfigured, getting very broad. That's where we saw on board with Weaven that there is a little... It's quite slippery there as it is getting around that corner. So when there is debris on the track, that makes it even more slippery. Oh, very slippery as he comes around. Brings that line in very early. And then he'll have enough time to be able to cross the line. So we have Gallon, we're setting a 1:46.762 is the fastest time on the board for the practice. And then we have Gallon 350, 1:46.762. So just before a 0 disconnected, I think it was a 1:46.230. So it's about half a second difference between that. And Weaven 777 also coming with a 1:46.814. So 3 drivers with the 1:46 mark. So there could be some potential rivalry for a 0 at this stage. So we haven't seen a 0 jump in just yet, but he would be loading at the moment. Oh, and that's Slappy. That's some lag going on there. So seeing his car just dive straight in. Yeah, so a lot of jitters going on at the moment from Slappy's car. Lag can be an issue at the start of the session as well. And there we are. Oh, Disfigured Soul has taken himself a grid place penalty already. No, that's disappeared. Oh, yes. Looks like we've lost Disfigured Soul, so he's probably just jumped out and will be joining back in, as he's got plenty of time to be able to get a time on the board. That grid place penalty being quite early on, it's safe to be able to get out, jump back in and get a time on the board. Hopefully 4-0, no issues with disconnects. Disconnects in those last minutes of the qualifying session. He won't be able to get in on time for the race. When you join us for the stream, there is a bunch of sound effect controls down underneath the stream. You can play a variety of sounds and cheers and all sorts of different phrases as well, so have some fun with the stream, make it your own, get those sound effects going and cheer on your favourite drivers. But do let us know who you think is going to take the pole position in this qualifying session. Will Zero get another pole? But Demon FX in the championship, he's going to be wanting to ensure that Azura at least doesn't get a pole position or doesn't get the fastest lap of the race. So a little bit of strategy could be in play for him. Try and finish in a very strong position, but set that car up so we can try and nail out a fastest lap. You're slightly off the pace. Getting any race view data yet. Oh no, I don't know if that's Simo's car. No, I think that's Gallen's car has gone off. I think he'll be doing... He mustn't have taken any damage, so he's going to get that car out back on track, I think. If you haven't taken any damage, it's just best just to turn that car around, get it back on track. Otherwise, especially for these longer lap tracks, it's when you're looking at about nearly 1:50 for a pit exit lap, plus your slower time. You've got at least 3 times to go around before you're going to be getting a decent time on the board. So you can't afford to have to bring that car back into the pits and head back out and do another 3 laps, as that will be half the session already gone. Looks like we're even getting in some last warmth before running up for this hot lap. The Sami's come through with his cold lap being a 1:49. Demon FX with a 1:50. Oh, no, it's a Zero. I think that's a Zero that's spun off at the back. I'm pretty sure he's the only green and white car. Oh, he's just hit that curb too. That's going to be costly. He's going to have to quickly decide, does he bring that car back into the pits or risk it? If he's lucky he hasn't taken any damage, let's have a look and see what sort of scrapes is looking on that front of that car. Looks clean. I think we can see the tyres, see if it's... He looks like he's got through pretty clean, but this lap isn't going to count either. Yeah, so an opening lap of 2:01. He must have been lucky. It must have been enough to have cut track, so looks like this lap will count for him. That's only leaving 9.5 minutes for him to get into form. So he may be a little bit out of form at the moment after trying to have to rush back in and sort that disconnect issue. So So some added stresses for Azuro. Hopefully that does not affect his form too much tonight. And we have lost Disfigured Soul, unfortunately. Not showing that he's disconnected, so I'm not sure what's going on. He's actually could have potentially had a DQ as well. He will be able to rejoin back in the session though. Excessive speeding in the pits can lead to a DQ. Gallon's come through with fastest time at the moment, a 1:48.313. We saw him getting to the 1:46 mark. He's got DG behind him. Doing some friendly banter in the lobby beforehand, staying for him not to put too much pressure on him. They are brothers, so I'm pretty sure. So it's a bit of rivalry between the two, and plenty of ribbing going on between them. Weaven and Slappy Kiwi move over to the side as Gallon goes around. Gallon's tucked back in behind Weaven, not sure if he's just playing with him there. Weaven will probably return the favour as well. We've seen spectacular driving from Gallon throughout our series as well. And he has some championship victories under his belt. Saw him take the championship for the Ferrari 488 Challenge Series, and also the GT3 World Tour. Timo Simsel coming in with a 151. I'm sure that was just in the background. I saw some orange. It might have been a car, but I thought it might have been a traffic cone being thrown to the air. I'm not getting a feed as to who's run off track, so I'm not sure if that was anything. And here's Azuro going flat out around the side. I think there's some ghosting going on with Azuro and Laffy Kiwi's car. Yeah, there's definitely ghosting going on. That is really odd. So that may be some lag going on. There's no ghosting available. Ghosting is turned off. Very interesting. So now we've only got 9 cars on the field. Trying to see who we've lost. So far, Gallon has set a 1:46.429, so that's not much off the pace that we saw Azuro set in that practice session. And thanks for hitting that follow button too. Much appreciated. Azuro coming in for 1:46.937, so he's half a second off pace from Gallon 350 at the moment. Oh, and Sami's just moved up the line as well, coming in with a 1:47.762. Oh, and he's made a mistake. There's no damage there. That's time to quickly flip that car. No, he's brought that back into the pits. But he mustn't have been happy with the handling of that first corner. I think our championship leader Azuro is maybe in for a bit of a battle tonight. It will be definitely different getting into the main race for tonight with 20 laps around the Red Bull Ring. That's going to see pit strategy coming down as to being key for the race. It is usually the case for most of them. However, these longer races and this track especially, it's going to be a definite one. Drivers who are sharing team colours are going to have to be cautious as well as to when they pit in, as they tend to have to share a pit stall. We have seen it happen a couple of times, drivers having to sit and wait for another car to have their mandatory pit before being able to use the stall themselves. So far in the qualifying, all the cars reasonably on their own, except for that strange ghosting we did see going on with DG's car and Azuro's. And here we go, we've had Azuro come through with a 146.3 again. That's the time we saw him set in that practice session just before he disconnected. So there's 3.5 minutes remaining. If Azuro suffers a disconnect now, it will be costly for him, as he's going to miss the first race, and that will be a big opportunity for Gallon 350 and and Demon Effects to get a points advantage and try and close the championship lead from Azuro, as he's currently leading by 32 points. If my chat audio does seem quiet at all, let me know so I can increase the mic volume. I have ended up upgrading to a new headset, as my last headset had gotten quite old and a bit creaky, so I'd noticed in the last streams, whenever I would actually talk, it would actually register my mouth moving and making the headset creak. So it's definitely time for an upgrade. Gallon topping that car out quite heavily. You can hear that rev limiter being hit. That's Weaven just behind him as well. So he's just coming up to the end of Sector 2. Weaven's going to be enjoying some slipstream advantage here. Oh, very broad for Gallon as he slips around in that turn. See what sort of speed advantage Weaven happens to get out of this. It will be interesting to see what goes on. Well, Gallon's run off track, he's let Weaven through. Oh, cheers, Scout Trooper, that's helpful. And will Weaven improve this time? He's running a very light fuel load. Got a 147.062 as his fastest. And that's about 2.5 seconds off pace, so that was a bit of a slower lap. Gallon has brought that car back into the pits. Drivers do need to ensure they know where that pit entry is, pay attention to where those entry cones are so that they can ensure they pull that car up in time before heading into the pits. So it is a heavy time penalty for speeding in the pits, and especially in qualifying there is a grid place penalty, which we did see Disfigured Soul get applied straight on as soon as he started the qualifying session, but he's now not in the list. Just not sure if he's happened to have a disconnect. So far, Azuro having a good chance of keeping this pole position. It's going to be up to Demon Effects, and he's currently in the 146 marks at the moment. I think if he can shave off another, it's probably tough to try and shave off another second. Oh, and that's just cost him. He's just run wide on that last lap. I wonder if he ran out of fuel. That's unfortunate. And that's it for Weaven. I don't think there's going to be an opportunity for anyone to be able to steal that pole position away. And then that is setting Azuro up for an opportunity to have that clean sweep tonight. He's been undefeated in this series so far. So 6 wins under his belt and just about pole position in all the races. So out of the 6 races, he's taken 5 pole positions. Well, that's a very strong result. And if he does take this clean sweep tonight, that'll see him with 145 points. And that's enough to ensure he wins the championship after tonight's round. And there's DG0787 just finishing up his last lap. He's currently in 8th position. Slappy Kiwi looks to be coming up. Oh, he's just brought that back in. So it's up to Simo Simsel, who is wrapping up his last lap now. Can he make an improvement on his time and jump up the ladder a bit more? There we have it, qualifying session for round 4 in the first race tonight. So a 0-143 taking another pole position, followed by Gallon 350 and Demon FX. And then Weaven 777 and Sami not too far behind, so it's only a difference of 1.5 seconds between our first 5. So Disfigured Soul is still in, so he's going to be joining us in the race. So not sure what was going on. He must have jumped back into the lobby, but he's been given 2 grid places. But however, since he didn't get a time on the board, he will start from 10th position anyway. So at least we'll see him start the race. So he didn't happen to disconnect. So we have 10 cars back on the grid. And we should get a good view for the start of the race here. Try and see which cars is going to give us the best advantage for seeing. We have to get onto that inside line. Drivers have a couple of minutes just to get their setup, so you would have seen cars were running quite low fuel, so they do use a qualifying setup and then change over to a race setup, so they need to make sure that they're opening those cows for the radiator, as it does give you a good speed advantage. However, it will actually cook your engine in the long run, so you can't afford to get too many laps out before you start suffering critical damage to that engine. Once all drivers have hit ready before that 2-minute countdown goes, the game will sync and be ready to have the lights count down to the start of the opening race for round 4. Ah, that's what happened. Has it got you in the actual race? It's not going to throw you into the pits? Disfigured is in the chat for those who can't see the chat on the stream. As just mentioned, he got a disqualification for the pit limiter not working. Here we go, all the drivers are ready. Better lights, here we go. Green, off we go, and a delayed start by Gallon 350 as Zero gets a nice jump, but then Weaven dives up in between Demon Effects and Gallon. He's going to be in a very awkward position. He's going to have to... Oh, there's been some chaos towards the back of the field, so Disfigured Soul, and that's DG0787 has been rolled onto his roof. He's going to have to try and find that reset button if he hasn't got one set. Looks like Slappy Kiwi's got some damage. He's struggling with that car at the moment. That left-hand side wheel is not going straight at all. I don't think we can see it too much, what's going on. But not a good clean start so far. We now have Weaven actually in the lead for the championship. Sorry, not the championship, for the race, I should be saying. Zero is right on his tail. There's going to be almost some contact there as he's going for that inside line. He's going for a good inside pass here. They're side by side. They will be coming up for a left-hand turn. Gallon 350's just dived out to the side, getting that optimal line position. Gallon looking to try and get around these two. This is some very tight racing. The drivers do need to be cautious of latency between each other as well, as when you're racing that close, if the other driver has the tiniest amount of lag difference to you, that could actually mean that you are making contact without you seeing it. And that can be catastrophic for all involved. Zero climbs back out ahead. These guys need to ensure that he does not get too far ahead. Oh, and I think Jeffries has just gone for a big slide and a huge contact onto that back wall. That's going to be costly. We have lost a car already. I'm not sure. I think that's Slappy Kiwi, so he had some very critical damage trying to get around. I think Weaven may have just been obeying a slowdown penalty. He moved aside. Yeah, we did get that on the stream there. We saw that left-hand side really wobbly and you struggling to get that car. It would have been a very long way around, Slappy. Try and get that into the pits. Not sure what happened there, but we saw DG0787 end up on his roof as well. Disfigured, took some damage. So DG did manage to get that car reset sorted. Those that can't see the chat in the streams, we just had Slappy join in. He retired from the race as that incident we saw with that significant damage to his car, it did actually snap the suspension. The Zero's starting to put that lead out to about half a second. Weaven slightly slipping behind. But Gallen has taken that place to be able to have a crack at him. Zero would have been feeling a fair bit of pressure. I don't think he's had anyone ahead of him so far in this series. He's gotten a great start after those pole positions. And then when he hasn't had that pole position, he did actually get an excellent start and sneak ahead very quickly. So having Weaven ahead of him, on the slipstream by Gallen, has launched himself around. He's going to have to shave off a lot of speed. He's going to be coming in a lot hotter than usual. This is going to be dangerous. Oh, so him having to shave off that extra speed and then being on that inside line was quite advantage to Zero to seal that position back with Weaven, and Demon Effects now shooting out. Oh, Demon goes in between the two. This is so tight between these four. This is insane. These guys, oh, Weaven, he's just run off wide and pulled that car back in, nearly making contact with a Zero that could have taken out all four of them. These guys are going to have to be quite careful, as it could end badly for all of them at this close proximity. One mistake. Oh, and he gets up over that curve, bit of slip. A nice line by Gallen coming through. He's quite quick. Not too far behind is Sami as well. So look out, Sami is closing in on these four as he wants to get in and have another crack at a Zero that, like we saw last week, he had a very good opportunity to actually have that race in the bag. And I'm not sure if these three are all just having turns at having a go as a Zero. I think they are very determined to try and break his victory streak. Oh, very nice inside pass. That's going to be putting him out a little bit. He moves to block. Gallen's run off and hit a barrier, and he's just touched Demon Effects as well. So that's just put Gallen into a... Oh no, he did not spin. It looked like he was going into a spin. He's brought that car back in just in time. Yeah, Slappy, I think DG was quite lucky. He rolled pretty cleanly, so I think he's only just taken some aero damage. That rear cowl seemed to have actually been torn off when he was on his roof, but I think mechanically for his suspension he should be fine. So he's not going to be seeing some nice speeds, but he will be able to at least get that car around. And he's sitting in 8th position. The Disfigured Soul took a fair bit of damage, but I think he did have to go into the pits. So we couldn't see too much of what was going on with the incident with Slappy, but we did see Disfigured and DG actually collide quite hard, and then I think that incident actually may have then collided with Slappy's car. But these four, we're only lap 4 in, and these guys are very tight. So we've seen usually by lap 5, we've had a Zero leading the race by about 5 to 6 seconds. So we usually see him about a second quicker each lap. So normally we would have been seeing him about a 4-second mark, and he's only got 0.136 currently, and that is closing. He's tried to break that stream advantage and then makes a move. That is tight. There is no room between him and Weaven. Demon Effects is also then tucking back in behind Weaven 777. Gallen tucks off into the inside, so he's looking at these four swerving side to side. And I don't think it's going to be an opportunity for Weaven to make a move here. On some of these sharper corners, he could potentially look for a switchback. Demon Effects making an error, so he's just gone off. That's going to allow Sami to try and close in on him now. Getting some weird time differences here at the moment as well. Zero is going to be working for this race if he's going to take a win here. These guys are not going to let him get away with it easily if he is going to have one. He's free, still nice and tight. There's only 0.2 between Zero and Weaven, and then 0.4 between Weaven and Gallen. So then there was a closer gap with Demon FX, but that's now slipped out. He's now trailing by 1.5 seconds behind Gallen. And Sami is quickly closing in on that by just less than a second behind. Zero starting to push that lead out. And while the rest of the guys are sitting in behind a Zero, while they are contending with each other, that can be advantageous to a Zero, as some of those maneuvers could potentially put them into a slower lap time than what a Zero is setting. So they need to close that gap in, almost work together to try and put some pressure onto a Zero, and then close in and see if they can force an error and make a move. Yeah, that's right, Slappy it is. It's very tight racing from these three, and it was these four just before. So we'll jump on with Weaven. So him and Gallen have been doing some exchanges here. A nice line. Gallen goes quite wide out. And lap 6. Zero was usually sitting pretty comfy by this time in the sprint races in all the last rounds. I don't think he's going to have that. Oh, Gallen's just gone off. So now that leaves it up to Weaven. I don't know if he's taken damage. He may have made wall contact. So that was that section of track. That curb is quite raised, and it is almost like a skateboard grind on a rail going over there. You bottom the car out and you drag it along that section of curb. So you do lose contact to the ground with those tyres, so it is very risky. Weaven now just about a second behind. Oh, a little bit of oversteer going on for Weaven's car. He had to correct it. But it looks like they're coming up to Disfigured's car at the moment, so they're going to have to try and get around. When will he move over to allow that blue flag? Probably he's going to use the slipstream advantage and shoot around him here. They're on the first long straight. Yes, he moves over. It's a perfect spot, so it's allowed them a nice slingshot around on that front straight. Ooh, Weaven takes a very fast line out of there. He's closed that down to less than half a second again now. The Demon Effect's 3.5 seconds behind the leader at the moment. It's a little while to catch up. And we've got Gallon sitting very tight behind Sami now after recovering from that spin. Hopefully he hasn't taken any damage. And then Weaven has slipped it back by a second. It would be interesting for me to be able to see some sector data. But last laps was set. We had a 0 doing a 146.253 and Weaven setting a 146.120. So he was actually quicker. So we'll just quickly look at the fastest lap times. Current fastest lap. Oh, Weaven's just copped a 1 second time penalty as well. It's going to be costly with sitting at lap 7 of 10. Yes, so a 0's current fastest lap of 146.001. Weaven a little bit slow behind, so if he is going to get ahead of a 0 now, he has to at least get ahead by another second. Gallon's got a little ways to still catch back up to Sami. And we have Jeffries starting to close in on Simo Simzul, looking to take 6th position away from him. At the back after this figure taking that damage and having headed into the pits, sitting in 9th position. And DG, he didn't head into the pits, but he does have some sort of damage to his car. I think the game usually tends to throw the cowling back on, but that cowling, notice that rear cowling is missing. A 0 isn't out of trouble yet though. Usually he was doing a race on his own and leading by about 8 seconds by this time in all the other races. He's had to work for this one throughout. He's being quickly honed in by Weaven again. Oh, and Weaven much quicker down through that line. He's going almost for an inside line. Had to bring that back across as that would have saw him actually cross out into the path of a 0. So he had to pull back and not go for it in that position. A nice fast line here, and then a slingshot onto pit straight. Here he does it, a nice inside pass. So will he have enough speed to get around? He's running, but he's going to be in that same position that we saw Gallon have a dig at him before. He was inside that line, but he did move over and block that position, but running wide to do so as he had a lot of extra speed. That was a very good line. So Weaven now sitting in a very good position. All he has to do is just keep consistent now. We did see him set a faster lap in that World 146 mark compared to a 0. Very nice line taken by both. As long as Weaven can fight that pressure, but he does need to ensure to get ahead by 1 second. So that is one advantage to a 0 at the moment. He does not actually have to get past to get the win here. If he finishes in the current time difference between him and a 0, that will see him win the race by default. So with only 2 laps remaining, it's not really worth a risk of trying to take a pass if he can at least tuck in behind. Last laps, Weaven set 146.387 and a 0 set a 147.549. So that is a very good opportunity for Weaven. So he's got the quicker pace at the moment. He's setting the times that a 0 can do. He's coming up to the last lap now. 0 considering getting out alongside him here. But he may not be aware that Weaven is sporting a time penalty, as some drivers don't like to have on their screen any of the grid position data that we are seeing on the stream here. I race with that actually up in that exact same position just so I can actually see what's going on. And then when a driver actually does get a time penalty, to the right of where the current time data in the yellow is, you actually do see plus and the number of seconds that that driver has in the way of time penalty. Ooh, and he's just had to overcorrect. I don't think he's going to have it in him to be able to get around and shave a second off from the 0. The unfortunate thing, if the 0 isn't aware of that time penalty, and he's going to be potentially looking at making quite an aggressive pass somewhere in this next half of a lap. Ooh, and he's on inside, but he's had to give in. He had to get that position in, but I might be able to do a little bit of switch back here as he took that different line. Ooh, and I think that was almost a bit of contact made by the two. There was a little bit of slip going on. Don't know if that was a nudge. These cars aren't easily rubbed with each other, as you do tend to lock wheels. Here we are, the last 2 turns. The 0 will have the win. He doesn't need to get in front. So great. Oh, and Weaven's just gone off. He's brought that back in. At least he will cross the line in first position, but we'll see him drop down into second position as they cross the line. So congratulations to a 0 getting the win by way of 1 second time penalty. Weaven on the second position for the podium, followed by Demon FX. And then Gallen in 4th position, Sami in 5th. So some time penalties showing for Simo and Jeffries as well. So when that comes up with the red over their position number. Ooh, a nice line by Simo as he dives down through there. That's where I was mentioning in the qualifying we did a lap around. We saw, oh, and they've both got time penalties, so it's going to be interesting just to see. They both had 1 second, so Jeffries just manages to sneak in 6th position away from Simo Simsel. That was well preyed on right at the end. And here comes DG0787. Oh, he's actually also missing part of that bonnet cowling as well. He would have been definitely suffering some speed disadvantages. And Disfigured is deciding to finish in the pits. So DG0787 crosses the line in 8th position, and Disfigured Soul getting in a quick pit stop for the last 14 seconds of the race. Well, they release him in time to be able to get across the line before the countdown, or is he just going to wait it out? I think he's just decided to wait it out. So there we have it, race 1 for round 4 at the Red Bull Ring GP. We have a 0143 taking a race victory after managing to steal it back from Weaven 777, who crossed the line in first position with that 1 second penalty. Saw a 0 slip back up. So he's on his way for being able to get a clean sweep tonight. So he's taken pole position, race victory, and the fastest lap, so setting a 146.011. So almost 146 flat. That is pretty quick. So on the podium we have Weaven 777 in second, Demon Effects in third, followed by Gallen 350, Sami Jeffries, Simo Simsel, who had 6th position taken away from him right at the finish line by Jeffries. And then we have DG in 8th, Disfigured in 9th, and Slappy Kiwi, who unfortunately had to retire after that big incident at the start. So hopefully better luck for Slappy as we go into session 2. So we'll be having about a 10-minute break as we get refreshed and ready for the next session. Then we'll be heading off into a 15-minute qualifier and then the main race, which is 20 laps around here. And with how these drivers are staying neck and neck with each other, it's going to be a very exciting race to watch. So stay tuned. We'll be back very shortly. And we are back for session 2. So we're now heading over into 15-minute qualifying for session 2. So game time is 1 p.m. Weather is medium clouds. We saw in the first session qualifying was 10 a.m. and then the weather was clear. So track temperatures should have increased a fair bit. So we should potentially see some quicker lap times. And with what we just saw for the sprint race, there's some very tight times, and I did get the fastest lap incorrect. So Zero didn't get the start for a clean sweep. It was actually Gallon 350 who set a 1:45.5 for the quickest lap of the race. So that is a phenomenal lap time around there to break that 1:46 mark, which I didn't think would be possible. We saw some bad luck with Slappy Kiwi. Oh, and DG's just taken a grid place penalty. 2 grid place penalties have been given. Hasn't DQ'd him like we saw with Disfigured in the first qualifying session. That is lucky. And DG is going to have to set a very good time to be able to accommodate those 2 grid places. And we had a Zero take the win by way of a 1 second time penalty from Weaven. So Weaven crossed the line in first position, but Zero was less than that second behind, so managed to reclaim the victory for the first race of round 4. That's now 7 consecutive victories, so he has not lost a race yet. However, drivers were saying that they were quite mentally fatigued by the end of it, as they were having to be quite focused throughout. So it's going to be a very enduring 20 laps around the Red Bull Ring. Don't forget to say hello if you're joining us for the stream and have the chat there. There's also sound effects down below, as we had a Fast Threat playing the applause at the end of the race, so you can do those various sound effects, have some fun for all the different events that you may see. You can cheer, you can boo, and make lots of funny phrases and the likes. We saw Weaven giving a fierce battle to a Zero in those last few laps as well, and then held a Zero back at bay. And unfortunately that time penalty costing him, and Slappy Kiwi having to retire from the race, so did not finish. However, he did stay behind as retired, so he will actually get some race points for at least still finishing on the line. So it's when drivers actually just up and quit the session and they don't actually remain on there. I'm not sure who that is. I think that may have been DG just going off wide into the kitty litter. Car's spinning around a fair bit. He's going to... I don't think he's taken any damage, so that's fine. I think that may be Disfigured just in front of Gallon. And then Gallon spinning out in those last few laps that cost him to fall back in behind, and then he had to try and catch up a fair bit of space. Ooh, a bit of slip coming into that corner. Sami did do a good race. We're starting to catch up on those first 4. We had a Zero, Weaven, Gallon and Demon Effects all within a matter of half a second for those first 4. And then Sami was quickly closing in. And he was quite a force to be reckoned with, giving Azuro a lot of grief in the first few laps last week. Hopefully a bit better luck for him that he can actually have another crack. Gallen comes through with a 147. Oh, is that disfigured? That's just gone bailing off. No, that was Demon Effects. He's brought that car back into the pits. But Sonny is leaving 10 minutes now for him to get out and get a few laps done. You're looking at almost 5 minutes before you can get a good lap in, and if you do make an error on that lap, that means another minute 50 to get around. And if you do mess up in those last couple of corners, it could then also invalidate that next lap. So you do need to be very careful. Zero opening laps of 1:49.062. If Gallen can really push that car to a 1:45 again, I'm pretty sure that would have been as way of having a slipstream advantage, which still can be done in qualifying, so he could find himself tuck in behind someone. He could hold back and pull in with someone who's very on par with him in lap time wise, and then use that advantage. So you could tuck in behind Azuro or Weaven. So Azuro's come through with a 1:47.416. We saw him shave about a second off each lap in the first qualifying session. So we can see Gallen doing exactly what I was talking about. DG dragging him along for the lap time, and that's done it too. It's pulled him in for a 1:46.412. So a bit of teamwork going on between him and DG. Not sure if DG was looking to try and move out of the way for Gallen. And Gallen was probably like, don't move, just stay there. So taking pole position, 1:46.412. It's going to be hard to beat. A 1:46.3 was the time set by Azuro last session. Gallen usually a little bit slower off the grid, so usually plays it cautious, as he's had a couple of jump starts that cost him, so he does ensure that he does not incur another one of those. So he's tucked back off again, getting some extra warmth into those tyres, and then I think he's going to probably come up for a very hot lap and then try and catch back up to DG right before the end of his hot lap is probably what he's doing. So he's doing that strategy that I was discussing. And if Azuro does get a pole position and a race win and the fastest lap, it's not going to be enough points for him to ensure having a championship victory next week, as it will be the final round and there is big points up for grabs. So a victory on the final round is 120 points, 20 points for a pole position, and then 5 for the fastest lap of the race. So far, Azuro scoring tonight another 50 points only. There's another potential 85 to get up, so it'll be about 135 points that he can secure tonight. So Gallen stealing that fastest lap has ensured he cannot walk away from the end of tonight's races being the championship winner. So it will be decided next week. And Azuro was mentioning that there was a cheer in the party chat when he did get disconnected from the game server. So he didn't get a full disconnect, he could still hear it. There's some good jeering going on between our drivers. They are very dedicated in trying to sneak a win in over Azuro. Hopefully Demon Effects can shave a little bit off. We saw some good lap times in the first qualifying session. sure he can try and shave a bit more off. Sami's come up into third. Oh, and that's costly for him there. He's going to have to bring the car back into the pits and get out really quick, as he only has 5.5 minutes remaining of the qualifying session. If you're joining us for the stream, let us know who you think's going to maintain pole position. Will it be Azuro, or will Gallen or Weaven be able to sneak in with another good lap time? Gallen, here's Gallen, so he's tucking in behind Weaven at the moment, and he's coming on to pit straight, so he's going to have a good advantage for a slipstream. A very nice line. Weaven's gone out wide. I'm not sure if this was this lap that he was trying to get extra warmth into those tyres. Will he make an improvement? He does, and he steals pole position away. He's doing the slipstream strategy. So a 1:46.089. So now beating Azuro's time by 0.276. I think if Gallen can manage to maintain that pole position and have that advantage from a better starting position, he will have a good line off the start ready for turn one. And if he can maintain that while the rest of them, with Azuro, Weaven, Demon Effects and Sami, potentially all contesting for those next spots as they clamber to find positions in turn one, it could be an advantage to Gallen. But Azuro does get away very quick at the start, so potentially could see the two. Oh, and he's nearly made contact with Gallen, so bit of oversteer coming into that corner, nearly putting that rear in. It's going to be a bad lap time for the two here, as Gallen did have to break line to try and avoid potential collision. DG currently sitting in 10th position, and he's got those 2 grid place penalties from speeding in pits that he needs to ensure he jumps up a few more positions on the grid, but that penalty doesn't affect him. Timo's just gone off track as well. Very broad, but this lap and the next isn't going to count, so he's going to have to go around another lap for an opportunity to get an improved lap time. We have Weaven and Gallen switch back around now. Oh, and that's just cost Weaven, so the extra speed coming into turn one costing him. I don't know if he's going to bring that into the pits. I think he is. He's quite still. He's just waiting for Disfigured to get around here. No, it's Demon Effects, sorry. He's brought that back in, so that's it for Weaven. He's going to have to be happy with that time. There was a yellow flag out for Weaven being off on track like that. Demon Effects also in the 1:46 mark. There's only 0.812 difference off Gallen's time. Oh, and I think Azuro's gone off. That may, I don't know, it hasn't invalidated his time. So, but he's probably not going to be getting a very good run-off speed to start this lap, so I don't think he's going to have an opportunity to be able to improve this time. He's not going to be able to get the opportunity to get that pole position away from Gallen. He's going to have to hope that Demon Effects or Sami doesn't come through with a quicker time and push him further down, because I think a much further back start by Azuro is going to be quite costly for him. As we've seen throughout the other rounds, Azuro is in great form once he gets that 2.5 second lead over the rest of the field, and then that's when he just continues to climb away for at least a second a lap. So Demon Effects not improving that time. That lap being a 1:47.062. His fastest lap is a 1:46.901. And DG0787's moved up into 7th position, so he's improved that lap time, so that will move him down into 9th position. Unless Simo Simsel can improve his current lap. Simo Simsel's last lap 154, his best laps are 151. Hopefully he's got a little bit more pace here and he might be able to jump up a few spots. There's a lot of cars in the pits, so no opportunities now with only 12 seconds remaining. And then I think we get about 2 minutes to finish the final laps. So that's essentially just one more lap to sneak in. Just 133 seconds remaining. I think Gallen is pretty set. So his last lap 147.756, so quite off pace there. But he was using the advantage of the slipstreams to get that very tight time. So almost breaking the 146 mark. He's coming up for his last lap. Taking it reasonably cautious, so yeah, this wasn't impressive this lap, so there's no opportunity for getting it. I don't think Azuro has an opportunity to be able to improve his lap. We'll have to wait until he comes up into the next sector. Oh, Demon Effects has just pushed Azuro down a position, and as I was mentioning, it looked like Azuro's error coming into that last turn potentially did have him at a speed disadvantage going down pit straight. Let's see what comes up. Oh, he is bettering his lap time by only 0.088. Not going to be enough. He's going to have to dig deep quite well. And there's yellow flag on pit straight. That's probably Gallen doing some burnouts most likely. He's just chilling, waiting for a mate at the finish line. I know he's brought the car in. So Demon Effects brought it in, so it's just a 0 left. I don't think he's going to be able to jump back up and take away second position. Oh, he's just taken pole position. He did dig deep for that last sector 3, so he's done another pole position, but only just. So it's 0.010 difference between him and Gallen. So that's putting back into that good advantage to be able to get that good start, as he's quite quick off the mark for the starts. So we have Gallen starting in position 2, Demon Effects in 3rd, followed by Weaven, Sami. Then we have DG in 6th, but he takes 2 grid places, so he moves down into 8th position. So that moves Jeffries up into 6th, Simo Simsel into 7th, and then we have Slappy Kiwi in 9th and Disfigured Soul in 10th position. Excuse me. And then drivers just needing to make final adjustments ready. You can see a few cars dipping down. That's them reloading their setups. Let us know if you think Azuro will be taking a win. I think there is a possibility he can get it, but he's going to have to really fight for it, just like he did in race 1 tonight, as he had it pretty easy after the first couple of laps in each of the other races, as by that stage he'd gotten that 2.5 second lead, where that slipstream was then broken from any cars following him, and then with that consistent pace of his with no errors, he's just able to keep furthering that. And then when you are running about a second quicker over the rest of the cars, you just further that lead another second per lap. But he had someone on his tail basically the entire 10 laps, and to endure that over 20 laps, I think we'll definitely see him potentially drop a position for sure. We need Gallon to get a good jump here. We saw Demon Effect some Weaving get a good jump before. Lights are green. A bit of a delayed start by Azuro. So Weaving and Demon Effects got off to a good start. So Gallon slipped back a couple of positions. Demon Effects moves up into second position. Weaving in third. Azuro, nice line. Oh, 3 wide. So Weaving has taken contact with Gallon. And then I think that was Disfigured, who then just made contact with the 2. And then we have Weaving dragging a cone with him as well, taking it for a ride. Oh, I think Gallon's got some significant damage. Who's just dropped out? We've had someone, I think at Slappy Kiwi has dropped out. I'm not sure if he's taken damage. That's unfortunate. Gallon and Weaving were going to be having a great shot at contending for a win against Azuro. So it's now put a bit of a gap. So it's now up to Demon Effects and Sami to try and move up. Oh, and Slappy has just joined the chat and said that his car would not start. So some tech issues going. Yeah, that's pretty weird stuff going on there for you, Slappy. Do you have auto start for the car? Hopefully it's not some hardware issues going on with your setup. We have Azuro now leading by a second. Demon Effects is going to have to try and close that gap in very quickly over the next couple of laps. Otherwise Azuro is going to be pretty set and be quite at ease driving out there on his own. Oh, we've just had, I think that's Simo going out wide. And Weaving's in the pits. Yeah, some very strange things going on for you there, I think, Slappy. That's cost Weaving the race, essentially, but so long as he doesn't need fuel or tyres, and that can serve as his mandatory pit. A little bit of slip going on with Azuro's car. That's allowed Demon to try and close that gap in. He was trailing by about 1 second, so he's now just shaved off a few hundredths of a second, and he's now closing in on Azuro. He's not too far behind as well. Yeah, so some big tech issues going on, probably some glitches in the game happening for Slappy, so he did not get to start. He's had to sit the race out. That's a unfortunate round for Slappy for taking damage in that first race and then now having some tech issues going on. We have Demon Effects really honing in on Azuro, so this is what he needed to do. He needed to close in very quick, start putting that pressure onto Azuro very early, not let him get comfortable and start getting ahead. And if they're going to be racing tight, they need to ensure no time second penalties. If Weaving hadn't had that time second penalty come through onto him, it would not have cost him that race victory. And there is big points up for grabs too next week, Slappy, with the final race. So the points are double that of the normal mains. Oh, Demon has had a nice line. He's looking to swerve for a pass around Azuro. He also has Sami to contend with as well. These three are racing tight. Much better luck going on for Sami at the moment. Can these two start to close in a little bit more? As long as they can keep at that pace for quite a while, it will put the wear down on Azuro. And they are going to have to consider pit strategy as a means to ensure they finish in a very strong position. We have Gallen and Weaven now at the back of the field after the little bingle with them two getting caught up. I think there was a little bit of touch. It's probably some lag going on. Tends to happen in turn one. It does take a little bit for the game to actually sync up with everyone's latencies, as so many cars quickly getting off to speed and moving all sorts of directions. The game does tend to lag a little bit before it starts syncing everyone up. And last lap set, Azuro a 147 flat and Demon Effects a 147 flat. They are on par. This is insane. I have not seen 2 laps done at the exact time. It is near impossible to be able to do. You would at least think the chances would be at least a few digits in those hundredths of a second, but they are neck and neck. They are going to be a very interesting battle throughout these 20 laps, I think, if they keep this up. Here comes Azuro going for an inside part, Demon Effects, and he's done it. He's gone around, so this is coming into the last turns, but Azuro is holding that inside line. And he's tucked back in. He had to give that position for that line, otherwise it would have been a very risky move. And then Demon's come through with a good half-second lead coming out of that corner. So then now Azuro has some pressure from Sami, really pushing and sitting on his tail as well. And if that is the case, and Sami starts putting that pressure on and forces an error and manages to get around, that's going to be very advantageous to Demon Effects. That could then give him an advantage to be able to try and get ahead. Azuro is not wanting to give that position away too easily, so he's quickly honing back in. So he's coming into almost 100th of a second behind him. That is super tight. Look how close these two are. They are side by side, but he's had to get on those brakes as he's going to be on a very bad position. This is where we saw Gallen spin out in race 1 tonight on that corner. It is a very slippery curb, and then he goes for that inside line and he gets around. But then Demon is also side by side, but then has to tuck back in to get that better line, so giving that position back up. It's brilliant moves by Azuro, but then some very good defensive lines by Demon Effects, but then he had to play it very clean and safe to ensure that they didn't make contact. That could have actually ended the race for both of them, and then also potentially been a penalty situation. So he cannot afford to have any points lost either. And then we do have a hefty points penalty system as well, so we do encourage very clean driving. So it is costly to get a penalty. But Azuro is starting to put that distance apart, and Sami is starting to slip back a little bit as well. But we did have this same gap just a couple of laps ago before Demon Effects came flying through and actually made a pass and then put a half a second gain. So can he do it again? As long as he stays within those couple of seconds of Azuro, he's still going to be having that speed advantage to be able to get that toe and just be dragged along by Azuro's car. I'm sure Demon Effects is definitely going to be able to keep that pace. That's already lap 6. And as I was mentioning last race, Azuro is usually leading at this stage by a good 6 seconds this far into a race. He did not have that last race, and he's not getting that again this time around. So he's going to have to really work for these wins tonight, which we did see in that first race, and he would have actually lost it if it wasn't for that time second penalty for Weaven. We've seen Weaven move back up in the 6th position. And that's with him pitting as well, so if he does not need to pit again. If he can keep his mental focus and doesn't get too physically exhausted over the next 14 laps, he could actually be able to just keep going and use that pit stop as his mandatory pit, as there's no requirements as to when you actually have the pit. So no one else has pitted yet, Slappy, only Weaven, because he took some damage when he made contact with Gallen. But I think he took a bit more damage as he was dragging a traffic cone for a good while, and I've found in these cars, dragging a cone will actually start to do some damage to the car as well. Demon Effects is still keeping that pace. Oh, big slide. That could have been costly. It's cost him a little bit of time, so about 0.2 of a second. I've seen a fair few cars get quite broad going around that turn. That's where Gallen lost it in race 1. That threw his chance at taking a shot at a win as well, as he was a very strong contender fighting it out with Azuro. And we've found Azuro's strategy is to pit as late as possible. Oh, and Demon Effects has just made an error coming into the second last turn. Sasami now moves up into 2nd position. I think he's just going to say, stuff it, I'm going into the pits. He hasn't taken any damage. He's come through the red cones now. He's got that speed limiter, so he's probably thought he's already lined up for the pits, use that as his mandatory pit. So that's a mistake. Could actually come in handy in the long run, so he hasn't actually lost any time, as he's now just used that as his means of heading into the pits. However, now Azuro is leading quite strongly, so he tends to start putting on some pretty good pace then. And Disfigured's chatting and driving, and he's just said he's made a pit stop on lap 5. So I'm not sure if that's caused him to go off track then by chatting on stream and racing. That's another advantage there for Disfigured, already having made his mandatory pit. So we could start to see a few others actually peeling off now as we approach that halfway mark. That's some spacing going on now with the rest of the field. We have Jeffries 1109 coming in on 3rd position. DG 0787 in 4th. Oh, bit of broad. Nice bit of slip, but brings that back in. Some nice control. And some bad luck for DG in race 1, ending up on his roof. Demon Effects now back out on track. So we're looking at about 25 to 30 seconds, I think, for a pit stop. Demon Effects currently 35 seconds behind leader. That's enough time for a Zero to be able to get in for a pit and back out. So Disfigured's controller died out on him, so some issues. He's back out. Weaven does have some time second penalty, so a 1 second. He's made a good recovery so far. Demon Effects is closing in on DG. That's some pretty good pace by DG as well. His fastest lap's a 1:51. Sorry, not fastest, but the last lap. Ooh, and Demon Effects looking to get around. Takes a different line and gets a little bit slippery around that corner. Manages to get around DG nice and clean. And unfortunate for Gallen after that incident. Now seeing him back on lap 8. So a long ways for him to go. But there still is potential for him to probably climb a position. And then I think that was just Jeffries, yes, lapping Disfigured. Disfigured has pit, so we need to see a Zero. Sami, Jeffries to pit. DG I don't think has pit. We have a Weaven, and I'm pretty sure Gallen has pit. And I don't think I've seen Simo head into the pits either. I don't think it comes up on my timing screen for us to compare. Currently the fastest lap of the race is a 1:46.1, and that's set by Sami. Well done to Sami. And the Zero is now starting to get into that nice comfort buffer of 6 seconds between him and Sami. So Zero is starting to really close out that time. It's the last lap of 1:46.741. Let's see what this lap is here. Wouldn't be surprised if that's pretty much about the same time. The 1:47.191. He's keeping reasonably consistent, so it's going to allow him to keep pushing out that time, especially when Sami's last lap was a 1:49.072. So when he's about 2 seconds quicker, if he can manage that, that's going to further that lead by about 1 to 2 seconds. And Jeffries doing some good times. So 1:50 was that lap. So he's 20 seconds behind Sami. Sami will be safe in ways of managing to get a pit in. I think he'll be able to get in and out for Jeffries. Jeffries will need to pit anyways. It'll just be a matter of what time they decide to actually go in. I'm assuming a Zero will try and last out to lap 19 before pitting in. But a Zero not able to achieve that clean sweep tonight. But a victory here, and if he can potentially get that fastest lap, I think it's going to be pretty hard to try and beat the 1:46.1, especially for a Zero. We saw Gallen take the fastest lap in race 1 with the 1:45.5, that would have definitely been due to the amount of slip that those guys were getting when they were swapping between first to fourth position between themselves. There was a couple of cars worth of slipstream to really push these cars out, and you can nearly round their speed out to about 195. down those straights when you have that slipstream advantage. Otherwise these things do top out at about 188. Make our way down the grid as there is a bit of space going on. Unfortunate from that early incident in turn 1, costing what we could have seen as another fierce battle throughout the race. But Sami is closing that gap again. So last laps 1:47.326 and then Sami 1:47.816. So only half a second off pace. And then Demon Effect setting a 1:47.252 the last lap. And he has pit, so he could potentially be able to sneak out back into second position, I'm pretty sure. DG having a much better luck in this race. Sure does help when you have not been flipped onto your roof. Even having already pit to tend to that damage taken early on in the race. He will be able to recover a position, at least is closing in on DG pretty quickly. I think that's Disfigured Soul that is catching up to at the moment. Ooh, locked that back right. Ooh, that's cost him. That could have ended up into a slide. He's managed to be able to get that car back under control. So that is very lucky. And that's that same corner that we've seen a few catastrophes and potential big incidents happen. It is probably the trickiest corner out of the entire track. Oh, and he gets around. Nice clean line, so that's a very fast line. So it was a good spot to be able to sneak past some of the back markers. And so now currently sitting in 7th position. His last lap of 1:52.292. The Disfigured Soul just in behind him. So he's currently a minute 14 behind Simo Simsel, so it's going to take a lot to be able to get and catch back up for a position. And he has pit. That does mean for Gallon it's going to be pretty hard to try and catch up a good 30 seconds to try and cover another position and take that 8th position away from Disfigured. So probably just going to be finishing out these last 9 laps, unfortunately, to finish at the back of the field. A very unfortunate incident for Gallon and Weaven being involved in that, and then also for Slappy not getting even to get away at the start with those technical issues, and even Disfigured having some issues with his controller as well. That is very disappointing when issues like that cost race positions. Zero doing well, and here goes Sami, so deciding to pit in. Like he's got a long ways, I know, not too far to find his pit crew. Let's time him, see how long it takes. That's an 8-second release, that's not bad. And then here we have Jeffries and Demon Effects coming up along pit straight now. Jeffries will need to pit, so Jeffries will sneak into 2nd position. Sami loses those 2 spots. Oh, and it's neck and neck coming out for Demon Effects, and these two both having now pitted. This is a fight for that position. But it is as I predicted. Demon Effects should be able to have had enough time to be able to sneak back in after Sami's pit stop. He did have a nice quick release. Got ample fuel. So now up for Sami to try and close that gap in on Demon Effects. But these two will move up a couple of positions once Jeffries peels off into the pits. So that'll see Jeffries slip back into 4th position. DG also needs to pit. We have Weaven now looking to get past DG. DG moves out quite wide. I think he was giving the opportunity for Weaven to actually make a move if he was keen to try and attempt a pass at that moment. Some cautious driving for DG. DG has been in the brunt of a couple of incidents, so probably playing cautious is probably a good strategy to do. It's better to at least finish the line in a reasonable position than to potentially get in the road of another driver and then have that ruined for you by the way of an error. Even if it's not your fault, it's still very disappointing to have that race ended for you in that way. Basami's gotten around Demon Effects. He's closing in on Jeffries. He's probably not too sure if Jeffries has pit. As it's pretty hard to try and monitor and see who's been into the pits by looking at the heads up while still trying to remain focused and drive. Ooh, Jeffries has made an error, so he's run off wide. That's allowed Sami and Demon Effects to get around. That is okay, as Jeffries would have lost those positions due to pitting anyway. Better to re-enter that track nice and clean. Oh, he's just run off again. I think he's having some issues with the car. Not sure what's going on. And then Weaven is only 7 seconds behind him, so Weaven has a chance to be able to move up the line again. If he can try and make up 8 seconds over the next 5 laps, which is quite possible to do, he could actually have a crack at the podium still. So this is a brilliant recovery from Weaven, especially after taking that damage and that incident between him and Gallen on the first lap. He can stay focused, but then the big thing is that he pitted so early. He hasn't had as much of a break as what some of these other drivers have done. Sometimes pitting in that halfway mark at least allows you to have a quick stretch, have a drink of something and refocus yourself ready for that next stint. I'm sure if the way that Azuro tends to do his strategies of pitting on those last couple of laps, if he had have had the battle that he had been having in race 1, I'm pretty sure he would have probably looked at pitting a lot earlier to try and keep that mental stamina. The Demon Effects looking to get around. Oh, looks like a bit of lag going on with some of the cars. Looks like a little bit of a skip. Jeffrey's really having some trouble with that car at the moment. Not sure if he's taken some damage somewhere and the car's not performing correctly, and you can see Weaven just out of focus in the distance there, quickly catching up to these three. So Azuro, oh, and his big broad slide. This is where we saw Gallen ditch it in the first race. But probably a bit of fatigue coming in on Jeffries at the moment. If that is the case, that's probably a good. Oh, there's some definite lag going on with his car as well. You can see some jumpy correction. Not sure if it's showing up on the streams as I run to console, so I'm seeing a different screen. I see the director's screen, not the broadcast. But I am seeing that car jitter about on the track. But I would consider pitting now for Jeffries if he is suffering a bit of fatigue with that car. He's last in going out, and here we have Sami and Demon Effects swapping spots yet again. Nice pass on that last turn to get a good run in and slingshot around Sami. We are now on lap 17 of 20. hope the quality of my voice audio is much better than it has been on these last fair few streams. I did listen back and notice there was a lot of clicking going on, so hopefully this new headset it makes for a lot more clarity of a broadcast. Zero's in a race of his own at the moment. He's catching up on Disfigured and DG at the moment. It looks like he's just lapped Gallon, I'm pretty sure. DG just ran off wide. With only 2 laps remaining, I'm pretty sure it's safe to say Azuro has got the win in the bag here. It's going to be pretty close between Sami and Demon FX. They have pit, and I've estimated it's about 30 to 35 seconds for a pit stop, provided that they get a reasonably good release. So we saw the last release when we were watching the Sami's pit stop was about 8 seconds release. It's now lap 18. Jeffries is starting to slip back a little bit. Oh, and an error there, but that's recovered. He's taking the cone. That's where we saw some extra damage being done. Oh, Weaven has now got the opportunity to get past. But where that cone is stuck on his car, oh, and he's just thrown it off onto the side wing, so that's going to be causing him some damage as well. He's thrown that away. That is lucky. Weaven now has recovered back into 4th position after climbing up into 2nd position at the start of the race. But considering he's in that incident and then him and Gallon had to wait and then get back around. Oh, and a 0. Oh, and Jeffries has just locked it up into the turn. He's recovered nicely. And here's a 0. He's come through now. Can we get a quick release? That's 10-second release. A couple seconds slower than Sami's. So here is the map. Sami and Demon FX just approaching the last 2 turns, and you can see on that red line down the bottom of the map with that white dot coming out, that is a 0. So he's exiting the pits now. He maintains that position. So he's on lap 19, 2 laps to go. Unless something big happens to a 0 in these last 2 laps, this race will be his. So it's now a battle between Sami and Demon FX. And if Weaven has the opportunity to be able to climb up a little bit more over these 2 laps, he could have a shot at having a crack at a spot on the podium. So Jeffries now peels into the pits. He's got a bit of time. I'm not sure if Simo has pit. I can't remember if I've seen him go in. So that means he's going to now recover a position away from Jeffries. So Simo Sims will move up into 5th position. I assume we'll show, yes, we've just seen then. Weaven is in 4th position. Oh, a bit of slip by Demon FX. That's going to cost him a lot of exit speed. Bit of relief for Sami now as Demon FX has slipped behind a little bit further. They were sitting just about less than 100th of a second between the 2, where it's now slipped back to almost a second. That will be good for Weaven. Weaven has a 1-second time penalty to have to deal with. I'll have to pay attention and see if Simo needs to pit this starting, at the end of this lap. Demon FX still trying, oh, and that's Weaven going off in the background there. I don't know if he's made contact with the wall. That's ruined his chance at having a go at a spot on the podium. He's just going to have to plod through now for this last lap. That will be fourth, but that is still a great recovery. Gallen, who also fell back towards the back of the field, has recovered into 8th position. Not going to have enough to be able to catch up to DG, unfortunately. But DG should be pretty safe in 7th position. He's on lap 19. He can have a shot at taking out Jeffries. Sami and Demon Effects are now side by side going down the straight. They're going to be coming down into a sharp left-hand corner. This is where we've seen people go for a slide. We saw Jeffries just do it on the last lap. Oh, and they both just take a slightly different line, but then pull that back in. They were both not on the optimal racing line, but both cost them. But then some nice speed here. Oh no, Demon Effects, a good run into that corner. He's going to have the advantage to have to pull that car in, but there may be able to be an opportunity for a follow through by Sami. Oh, this is tight. They are side by side now. Demon Effects is going to have to really pull it in, but this is coming up until the last corners. He's going to have a nice line down the inside, but Demon Effects could slingshot around. And Azuro is playing here. He's going to slowly get all across the line. Congratulations, Azuro, for a win. That's not enough, and Sami takes a 2nd position. So on the podium, position 2, Demon Effects in 3rd. Well done. Weaven following it up in 4th position. Timo Simsel must have pit. He's wrapping up this last lap. That'll see him finish in 5th position. And DG and Jeffries are now fighting out for 6th position on the last lap. There's 70 seconds to get their cars around and cross the line before it's over. I think that is enough time. Yes, they're coming up to the last couple of turns. Timo Simsel now coming up to cross the line in 5th position. Congratulations, Simo, on a 5th finish. Oh, Jeffries runs wide on that second last turn. Big dive in. Oh, but too quick. Bit of a slip. That's going to cost him. This is going to be an opportunity, I think, for Gallen to then reclaim. Will Gallen move up into 7th, or is Gal a lap back? Yes, that's not enough. So DG in 6th position, followed by Jeffries in 7th, Gallen in 8th. And then we have Disfigured coming up in 9th position. And there we have it, the conclusion of round 4 for the Apex Esports League Formula Rookie Cup. And Azuro takes yet another victory. So that now makes it 8 victories in total. So securing every race, having a spot at the top of the podium. So congratulations, Azuro, having a clean run so far. So we go into the final round next week. So Azuro is not in the clear for a championship win just yet. So on the podium we have in position 2 Sami, and then Demon Effects in 3rd position, and then followed by Weaven, Simo Zimzel, DG, Jeffries, Gallen and Disfigured Soul. So it was a very interesting race, especially at the start with the incident between Weaven and Gallen. So that'll have to be looked at and see what happened for that incident to occur. So be sure to check out our Facebook page to keep up to date with our results, standings and incident reports. So fastest lap, I will scan through properly and get it correct the first time. So it looks to be a 146.1. So that's Sami again. So taking position 2 and fastest lap bonus points. So well done to Sami for getting that. So next week is the final round. So we do head over into the Monza GP. So Autodromo Nacional Monza GP. and I think the conditions are actually some rain in amongst it as well. So it will be a very interesting final race to watch. So be sure, if you have not yet done so, hit that follow button so you can be notified for us going live. But otherwise, we will be back next week, Thursday night, 7:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, and it'll be a very interesting race. It's just the one race, but it is a long race, so it'll be very enduring for these drivers. And can Azuro manage to get a full clean victory throughout the entire series? So be sure to stay tuned and see how that goes. And thanks for tuning in, and hope to see you next week.